The Saffron Terror Myth: How a Dangerous Narrative Was Manufactured. Written by Rithi Agnihotri. A deep dive into how political opportunism, media bias, and ideological warfare created the false narrative of Saffron Terror to silence Hindu voices and divert attention from the real threats facing India. The left-liberal establishment routinely fabricates and spreads pernicious myths, not in the classical sense of teaching moral truths, but as distorted narratives crafted for ideological warfare. These modern myths are tools of propaganda designed to erode indigenous cultures, particularly targeting the revival of Hindu civilization. Through terms like Hindutva fascism, Hindu majoritarianism, Brahmanical patriarchy, and caste privilege, the woke machinery has successfully demonized Hindu identity. Tragically, many Hindus themselves have absorbed these falsehoods, silencing authentic voices and undermining the cultural confidence of an ancient civilization. One of the most insidious myths propagated in recent times is the conspiracy theory of Saffron Terror, or Hindu Terror. A quick online search reveals how so-called reputable think tanks and media platforms have worked overtime to manufacture this baseless narrative, using charged language to condemn something lacking substantial evidence. Ask yourself, how many reports have you encountered about armed Hindu terrorists attacking innocent civilians? Likely none. Yet the myth persists, piecing together unrelated events to fabricate an illusion of Hindu terror. In India, this term emerged in the early 2000s, driven largely by political motives. It was crafted as a diversionary tactic to shift focus away from the growing threat of Islamist terrorism by falsely projecting Hindus and their religious identity as violent. Simultaneously, global media, academic institutions, and think tanks began amplifying this narrative, churning out a steady stream of biased content. This ecosystem has effectively become an industry of Hindudvesha, committed to vilifying Hinduism under the pretext of countering extremism. However, what unites the two strands is their nefarious agenda, silencing Hind voices and gaslighting Hindu issues, as we will explore in the following sections. 2611 and the Collapse of the Lie. The extradition of Tahawwur Rana, the mastermind of the 2611 Mumbai terror attack, to India from the US has brought to the fore the concocted theory of Saffron Terror, yet again. Multiple sources and media investigations have revealed a disturbing attempt to portray the 2611 Mumbai attacks as an act of Hindu terrorism. However, this narrative collapsed when Constable Tukaram Ambal apprehended Ajmal Kasab alive. Kasab's capture provided irrefutable evidence of the involvement of Pakistani Islamist terrorists, delivering a decisive blow to the fabricated Hindu terror conspiracy. Abu Jundal, one of the planners of the Mumbai terror attacks, reportedly told the investigators that it was his idea to blame the attacks on the Hindus. The Le had reportedly conspired to give it the semblance of a retaliatory attack after the arrest of Lieutenant Colonel Prasad Purohit and Savi Pragya in the Malegan blast case. The terrorists who carried out the 2611 Mumbai attacks wore saffron wristbands and carried fake identity cards bearing Hindu names. The terrorists were also trained in the basics of the Hindi language so that they could converse in Hindi instead of Urdu. The plan hinged on the premise that all the terrorists would be killed in the attack. But when Constable Tukaram Ambal's ultimate sacrifice that resulted in the capture of Ajmal Kasab alive turned the Hindu terror narrative on its head. RVS Mani, a former Home Ministry official who worked in the Internal Security Division from 2006 to 2010, wrote in his book Hindu Terror, Insider Account of Ministry of Home Affairs, 2006 to 2010 that the government at the time actively promoted the idea of Saffron Terror, or Hindu Terror. According to him, even though early investigations pointed to radical Islamist groups and links to Pakistan behind several major terror attacks, some people in power later tried to shift the blame onto Hindus by creating a false narrative of Hindu terrorism. After the 2611 Mumbai terror attacks, public debates largely focused on issues like security failures, while the Saffron Terror conspiracy quietly faded into the background. Despite plenty of evidence available in the public domain, most of Hindu society remains unaware of how the false Hindu terror narrative was crafted. This lack of awareness is deeply concerning. However, With the extradition of 2611 mastermind Tahawwur Rana and his expected questioning by the NIA, many media reports and experts believe the full truth behind the attempt to link the attacks to Saffron terror may soon come to light. The book The Game Behind Saffron Terror by Kanwar Khatana explores the events leading up to the 2611 Mumbai terror attacks. It also points to the alleged involvement of an Indian political party working with Pakistan's ISI to push the false narrative of Saffron terror in connection with 2611 and other terror incidents from that period. Though the book is officially presented as fiction, many informed sources note that the storyline is clear and closely follows real events. According to them, anyone examining publicly available information can see the pattern and connections outlined by Colonel Khatana, a retired Indian intelligence officer. A myth is born. While it's not possible to establish a chronological timeline tracing the evolution of the conspiracy theory of Saffron terror in India, it would be safe to say that the fabricated discourse of Hindu terror first gained ground in the aftermath of the 2002 Gujarat riots. The left-liberal ecosystem deliberately distorted the narrative around the 2002 Gujarat riots, portraying them as a case of Hindu terror, while downplaying the horrific incident that triggered the violence. On February 27, 2002, a mob of Islamist rioters set fire to the Sabarmati Express, killing 59 Hindu car savaks, including women and children, who were returning from Ayodhya. This brutal act led to widespread riots in Gujarat. However, international media coverage largely ignored this massacre and instead pushed the narrative that fanatic Hindus alone were responsible for the violence. The tragic killing of Hindu pilgrims was effectively erased from the global discourse. As a result, many people, especially outside India, remain unaware of the Sabarmati Express carnage. The entire episode was framed to fit the Hindutva terror angle, while the initial act of anti-Hindu violence was brushed aside, revealing the deep bias in how the events were reported and remembered. A write-up titled, Understanding Saffron Terrorism, published by the Center for Strategic and Contemporary Research, a think tank in Pakistan, claims that the term saffron terror was first used by Indian journalist Praveen Swamy in 2002, he in the article he wrote for the Frontline. A look through the archives of Frontline magazine, particularly articles by Praveen Swamy from 2002 to 2004, reveals a clear attempt to push the Hindu terror narrative. One prominent example is a lead story from March 2002, explicitly titled Saffron Terror. Even though the full article is not accessible, the available excerpt is telling. It frames the 2002 Gujarat riots as a deliberate campaign of violence orchestrated by the Hindu right. The opening lines claim, political direction and police support enabled the death squads of the Hindu right to run riot in Muslim neighborhoods in Gujarat. Back in August 2010, India's then Home Minister P. Chidambaram reportedly raised the issue of saffron terrorism at a meeting of state police chiefs in New Delhi. There is no let-up in the attempts to radicalize young men and women in India. There has been a recent uncovered phenomenon of saffron terrorism that has been implicated in many bomb blasts in the past. My advice to you is that we must remain ever vigilant and continue to build, at both the central and state levels, our capacities in counterterrorism, he reportedly said. In yet another development in 2010 linking the narrative of Hindu terror to the political establishment of that time, WikiLeaks revealed that Congress leader Rahul Gandhi had communicated to the then U.S. Ambassador Timothy Romer that radicalized Hindu groups are a greater threat than the support of some Indian Muslims to extremist outfits such as the Lashkar-e-Taiba. In January 2013, then Home Minister Sushil Shinde accused the BJP and RSS of conducting training camps to spread terrorism, linking their alleged activities with the phenomenon of saffron terror. Reports have come during investigation that BJP and RSS conduct terror training camps to spread terrorism. Bombs were planted in Samjhauta Express, Mecca Masjid, and also a blast was carried out in Malegaon. This is saffron terrorism that I have talked about. It is the same thing and nothing new. It has come in the media several times, he reportedly said. Indian politician Digvijay Singh has been one of the key voices promoting the Hindu terror conspiracy theory. According to media reports, in 2010, He suggested that the death of Maharashtra ATS chief Hemant Karkare during the 26/11 Mumbai attacks was connected to threats Karkare had allegedly received from Hindu extremists. Singh continued to push this narrative with great personal interest, even going so far as to release a book titled 26/11 RSS Ki Sazish? 26/11, an RSS conspiracy, written by journalist Aziz Birni. His actions played a significant role in giving public legitimacy to this controversial and widely disputed theory. In his book The Myth of Hindu Terror, Insider Account of Ministry of Home Affairs, RVS Mani gives a detailed account of various terror bombings and attacks that occurred between 2006 to 2010, and through a combination of factual evidence available in the public domain and anecdotal evidence attributed to his insider's perspective in the Ministry of Home Affairs, the writer traces the trajectory of the manufacture and propagation of the narrative of Hindu terror case-wise. According to the book, the first seeds of the Hindu terrorism propaganda were sown with the 2006 non-dead blasts. The fact that all 9 surviving accused in the blast case were acquitted in January by a sessions court in Maharashtra corroborates Mani's claims regarding the Hindu terror conspiracy in relation to the blasts. Similarly, in the case of the 2008 Malegaon blasts, Mani argues that the original information received by state police revealed that the blasts were the handiwork of a radical Islamic group known as Al-Hadith. However, the investigations were later given a spin and subsequently influenced by various political stakeholders to peddle the narrative of Hindu terror, he adds. The creation and spread of the Saffron terror conspiracy theory in India is a complex issue driven by several factors: political opportunism, minority appeasement, and a broader anti-Hindu bias. It wasn't just about internal politics. It tied into a larger narrative promoted by the global left-liberal ecosystem, which has consistently portrayed Hindu identity in a negative light. This coordinated effort to brand Hindus as potential extremists has deep political and ideological roots. The next section will explore how this global narrative of Hindu terror has been shaped and reinforced over time. Role of the left-liberal ecosystem. Phrases such as Hindu majoritarianism, Hindutva fascism, Brahmanical patriarchy, etc., are buzzwords in Western media's coverage of issues concerning Hindus and India. Stop Hindudvesha highlighted in one of its earlier pieces how India's nationalist media is routinely demonized by the Western media and think tank ecosystem, with a generous sprinkling of these buzzwords, all because these media outlets dare to raise Hindu issues in the public domain. Saffron terror, Hindu terror, and Hindutva terror are another set of buzzwords generously used by the left-liberal ecosystem. In the global context, the typical modus operandi involves accusing the Hindu community of instigating or committing violence against other groups is a common tactic, often based on isolated incidents involving Hindu individuals. These events are selectively highlighted and framed within the broader Hindu terror narrative, while complex communal situations are misrepresented to portray Hindus as the sole aggressors. At a broader discursive level, multiple conspiracy theories are crafted by linking Hindu advocacy groups in the West with the Indian government's so-called Hindutva establishment. This tactic aims to label members of the global Hindu community as part of a Hindu terror network simply for voicing concerns about issues affecting Hindus. Grassroots Hindu organizations such as the VHP and RSS are routinely demonized, with the larger goal of silencing and delegitimizing any political or cultural advocacy on behalf of the Hindu community. The global left-liberal ecosystem's thesis on saffron terror also involves large-scale distortion and manipulation of India's internal issues to peddle the theory that minorities in India are at the receiving end of Hindu terror machinery. It is also closely connected to the anti-Hindu motivations of the Abrahamic ecosystem. Any act of Hindu resistance against radical Islamic extremism and terrorism and the onslaught of the Christian conversion industry is branded as saffron terror. Saffron Terror and Hindutva Ideology reads the title of a piece published by the Australian Institute of International Affairs in 2021. Full of blatant lies and vicious propaganda, the piece accuses the Indian government of perpetuating genocide against minorities, naming multiple Indian states, while claiming that minorities in these states live under constant fear of what it calls political violence. Thus, it's interesting how the piece conflates politics and saffron terrorism, peddling the narrative of saffron terror to viciously attack the Modi government. The writer attacks the RSS along predictable lines, accusing it of perpetrating saffron terror under state patronage. When minorities, particularly Muslims, are assaulted by saffron terrorists, they are often forced to recite Jai Shri Ram, a slogan raised for the glorification of Hindu Lord Rama, or else are offered a life or death choice, to accept Hinduism as their religion or be killed. Such situations occur throughout India, whether in Assam's Barpeta district or Mumbai's crowded streets, says the piece. Aside from citing two selectively chosen examples from biased sources, the article offers no concrete evidence to support its outrageous claims about saffron terror. It reads less like a serious analysis and more like a venomous attempt to spread anti-Hindu and anti-India sentiment under the guise of commentary. Western media and think tanks are filled with questionable analyses that strongly condemn a phenomenon, saffron terror, that has no real basis. Let's take a look at some headlines from international media and think tanks that reflect this trend. Indian Muslims blamed for saffron terror, want justice, BBC, January 2011. Hinduism and Terror, Hudson Institute, June 2004. Clean chits, deaths, acquittals, the unending tricks of fate in saffron terror cases, Economic and Political Weekly, April 2018. As saffron terror grips India, the country's minority Muslims worry about their future. Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, June 2022. The Samjhauta acquittals, Hindu terror goes unpunished in India, Al Jazeera, March 2019. Saffron terror, splinter or symptom, Economic and Political Weekly, September 2011. The saffron terror conspiracy has also turned into a full-fledged academic industry within humanities and social sciences. A large amount of literature, often published by top global publishers, focuses on terms like Hindutva, saffron terrorism, and Hindu nationalism. Much of this so-called research tries to draw links between Hindu nationalism and terrorism. The pattern is predictable. It begins with strong criticism of India's efforts to reclaim its civilizational identity, accusing the government of promoting a Hindutva fascist agenda through rewriting textbooks, reshaping culture, and revisiting history. Within this narrative, the Hindu terror theory is subtly introduced. Since many academic works in these fields rely on abstract theorizing, biased opinions supported by selective sources are often passed off as serious scholarship. Wrapping up. The main goal of the saffron terror conspiracy theory industry is to discredit Hindu concerns before they're even voiced and to silence Hindu expression. The left-liberal ecosystem uses classic gaslighting tactics, portraying any Hindu effort to resist violence or speak out against anti-Hindu hatred as proof of extremism, branding it saffron terror. Most dangerously, this narrative is pushed in subtle but powerful ways through left-leaning academia and think tanks. That's why it's crucial to challenge these narratives using informed, credible responses. The Hindu community, along with pro-Hindu research institutions and intellectuals, must take the lead in creating space for well-researched perspectives that expose and dismantle the myth of saffron terror.